Before we talk about what they do, before we talk about the screaming, the impossible strength, the voices speaking in languages no one in the room has ever learned, we need to talk about what they are. Because unlike the stories you have heard before this one, the existence of what we are about to discuss is not a matter of folklore. It is not a cultural superstition passed down through frightened generations. It is not something that lives only in the dark corners of uneducated minds. It is written in the holy book of one of the largest religions on earth. It is affirmed by scholars, by theologians, by academics who have devoted their lives to its study. And it is experienced right now, today, in hospitals and homes and villages across the Middle East, across South Asia, across Africa and beyond, by ordinary people who had no reason to believe and every reason to doubt until the moment it happened to them. The Quran, the holy book of Islam, devotes an entire chapter to them. Chapter 72, Surah Al-Jinn. In it, Allah speaks directly about this other creation, beings made not from clay as humans were made, but from smokeless fire, invisible to human eyes in their natural state, living alongside us in a world that overlaps with ours but exists just beyond the reach of our senses. They are called the Jinn. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, confirmed their existence in numerous authenticated hadith. Islamic scholars across 14 centuries have written extensively about them, their nature, their categories, their capabilities, their interactions with the human world. This is not mythology. This is theology. There is a difference. The Jinn are not all the same. Like humans, they exist in categories. Some are believers. They accepted Islam when a group of them heard the Quran being recited and were moved by it, as described in Surah Al-Jinn itself. These believing Jinn are bound by the same moral laws as humans. They do not interfere with human lives in harmful ways. But there are others. There are Jinn who are kafir, disbelievers, Jinn who are corrupt, malevolent, who take pleasure in causing harm to humans. And there is a category spoken of in Islamic texts with particular gravity, the shayateen, the devils, followers of Iblis, the one who refused to bow to Adam and was cursed and expelled, who swore before Allah that he would spend eternity misleading and destroying the children of Adam in revenge. These are the ones who possess. Possession, known in Arabic as mas or surah, is confirmed in Islamic theology as real. It is not metaphorical. The Quran and Hadith both contain evidence for it. Islamic scholars, including Ibn Taymiyyah, one of the most respected scholars in Islamic history, wrote at length about Jinn possession, confirming it, describing it, and detailing the methods of addressing it. The methods of addressing it are known collectively as ruqya, Quranic recitation, specific verses recited over the afflicted person, sometimes with water that has been breathed upon, used as both diagnosis and treatment, a practice that dates back to the time of the Prophet himself. Now, you might be listening to this and thinking, this is religion, this is belief, this is not evidence. So let us talk about evidence. Let us talk about what doctors, nurses, and psychiatrists who work in Muslim-majority countries have documented in clinical settings. Let us talk about what is on record, what has been filmed, what has been witnessed by medical professionals who had no religious agenda and every scientific reason to find another explanation. Because the cases we are about to describe do not come from rumor or hearsay. They come from hospitals, from documented records, from people who were examined before, during, and after by doctors who could not explain what they saw. And what those doctors saw, what those doctors documented, is going to stay with you for a very long time. You are a doctor. You have spent years in medical school. You have studied the human body, the human mind, the full catalog of diseases and disorders and conditions that can cause a person to behave in ways that seem impossible. You have a rational explanation for everything. It is your job. And then a patient is brought into your ward. And everything you know stops being enough. This is not a hypothetical. This is what has happened to medical professionals across the Islamic world. Professionals who documented what they saw, who reported it to their colleagues, who in some cases published their findings in medical journals that still exist today. People who had no intention of becoming part of a story like this one. People who simply could not look away from what was in front of them. Let us begin with one of the most widely documented and verified cases on record. The case of a young woman, we will call her Fatima, to protect her identity, brought to a hospital in Saudi Arabia in the early 2000s. She was in her mid-20s. She had been a healthy, educated, functioning young woman with no history of psychiatric illness. Her family brought her in because of what had begun happening at home. Episodes in which she appeared to lose consciousness and then wake up as something else entirely. The attending physicians ran every test available to them. Brain scans, blood work, neurological evaluations, psychiatric assessments. Every result came back normal. There was no tumor, no epilepsy, no psychosis, no dissociative disorder that matched her presentation. Her brain, by every measurable standard, was completely healthy. And then she had an episode in the hospital. In front of the medical staff, she went rigid. Her eyes rolled back completely, not partially, completely, until only the whites were visible. Her body arched backward in a position that the attending physician noted would have required the spine to flex beyond its anatomical limit. She did not cry out or scream. Instead, from her throat came a voice, a male voice, deep and ancient sounding and utterly unlike anything her vocal anatomy should have been capable of producing. The voice was angry. It cursed the people in the room in classical Arabic, a form of Arabic centuries old that this young woman, educated in modern Arabic, should not have known. When the doctor, a Muslim, began reciting Ayat al-Kursi, verse 255 of Surah al-Baqarah, known as the most powerful protective verse in the Quran, the voice screamed, not in pain exactly, in rage, in the way something screams when it encounters something that burns it. The voice demanded that the recitation stop. It threatened the people in the room. It described things about individual doctors that it should not have known, personal details, private matters, information that a stranger in a hospital bed could not have had access to. When the ruqya was performed fully, when a qualified practitioner recited the designated verses over Fatima with water and prayer, she convulsed violently for a period of several minutes. And then she went still, and then she opened her eyes. Her own eyes, normal and present and deeply confused. She had no memory of anything that had happened. This pattern, the total amnesia, the impossible physical contortions, the voice, the reaction to Quranic recitation, the personal knowledge of strangers in the room, repeats itself across hundreds of documented cases. Not dozens, hundreds. In Egypt, a 16-year-old boy was filmed during an episode. The footage was reviewed by neurologists who confirmed the physical positions his body achieved were inconsistent with normal human flexibility and would, under normal circumstances, have resulted in serious injury to the spine. He emerged from the episode uninjured and with no recollection. In Pakistan, a woman undergoing ruqya spoke in 3 languages she had never studied, including a regional dialect specific to a province hundreds of miles from where she had spent her entire life. Linguists who reviewed the recording confirmed the dialect was authentic. In Indonesia, a man possessed for several months was brought to an Islamic scholar for ruqya. During the session, the voice that spoke through him gave the name of the Jinn, described exactly how it had entered the man, named the person who had sent it, and described the location of a buried object, a small packet of materials associated with black magic, that was subsequently found exactly where it had said, under the floorboards of a specific room, precisely where no one had looked. In Jordan, a documented case from a major university hospital involved a young female patient who during her episodes exhibited strength, requiring 5 adult male nurses to physically restrain her small frame. The supervising physician wrote in his report, and this is in a medical document, that no neurological or psychiatric condition known to him could account for what he had witnessed. He concluded his report by stating that the case required consideration beyond the scope of conventional medicine. Beyond the scope of conventional medicine. A medical doctor, writing that in an official report. These are not stories told around fires. These are records, documents, filmed evidence, statements from professionals. And in every single case, in every case where Ruqya was properly performed, where the Quranic recitation was completed fully, the same thing happened. The voice fought, the body convulsed, the jinn, whatever it was, whatever its name, whatever its purpose, resisted with everything it had. And then it left, and the person on the floor or on the bed or in the corner where their body had ended up came back, confused, exhausted, unaware of anything that had occurred, coming back to themselves, as if they had simply been somewhere else for a while, as if something else had been borrowing their body, and had finally, reluctantly, been forced to give it back. Imagine you are in a room. The room is quiet. A person is lying on a mat on the floor. They look ordinary, tired, perhaps, and pale, and frightened in the way a person is frightened when they no longer fully trust their own body. Their family stands at the edges of the room, some of them praying quietly, some of them holding each other. Everyone is waiting. A man sits beside the person on the mat. He is a scholar trained in Ruqya, the Islamic practice of healing through Quranic recitation. He is not performing a ritual in the theatrical sense. He is not wearing robes or burning incense or chanting words in a language no one understands. He is simply reciting verses from the Quran, the words of Allah, clear and precise and ancient. For a few minutes, nothing happens, and then everything happens. The person on the mat stiffens, not gradually, suddenly, as if a current of electricity has passed through them. Their back arches, their hands curl, their face changes in a way that is almost impossible to describe without seeing it. A shift in the underlying expression that makes the face look inhabited by something that does not belong there. Something looking out through familiar eyes that suddenly seem very, very unfamiliar. And then the voice comes. This is the moment that breaks every skeptic in the room. Because the voice is not a voice that the person on the mat can produce. It is wrong in every way, wrong in pitch, wrong in timbre, wrong in the way it resonates in the chest and throat of a body that should not be capable of making that sound. It is deep in a way that seems to come from somewhere beneath the room, ancient in a way that makes the air feel older, and it speaks. What the voice says during Ruqya has been documented across hundreds of sessions recorded by Islamic scholars and practitioners over decades. The patterns are remarkably consistent, regardless of the country, the language, the background of the person afflicted. The voice almost always begins with resistance. It tells the practitioner to stop. It uses threats, sometimes vague, sometimes specific and personal, naming private things about the practitioner or members of the family in the room that it should have no way of knowing. This detail, the specific personal knowledge, is reported so consistently across so many independent cases that practitioners consider it a diagnostic marker. When the voice knows things it should not know, you know what you are dealing with. Then comes the interrogation. An experienced Ruqya practitioner does not simply recite and wait. They speak to the voice. They ask it questions that are designed to establish the nature of the possession and, critically, to determine whether another human being is responsible, whether the jinn was sent through black magic. In many documented cases, the voice answers these questions. It gives names. It gives locations. It describes how the possession was arranged and by whom. In a case from Morocco documented by an Islamic scholar in the 1990s, the voice named the person who had hired a practitioner of black magic to send the jinn. The name was unknown to the family of the afflicted woman. They investigated. The person named was a business rival of the woman's husband. When confronted, the rival did not deny it. Items connected to black magic were found at a location the voice had described. As the ruqya continues, as more verses are recited, as the practitioner increases both the volume and intensity of the recitation, the reaction of the voice changes. The threats give way to something else, something that practitioners describe consistently as a kind of anguish, as if the words of the Quran are not merely unwelcome but physically painful to the entity that is present. The body on the mat begins to convulse. In severe cases, in cases of long-standing possession where the jinn has embedded itself deeply, the physical reaction can be extreme. Practitioners who have conducted hundreds of sessions describe cases where it took multiple sessions over days or weeks before the possession fully broke, where each session would cause the jinn to retreat but not leave entirely, like a parasite that has wound itself too deeply into its host to be removed in a single procedure. During these extreme sessions, things are sometimes revealed. Practitioners have documented cases where the jinn, under the pressure of ruqya, described its own nature, its category, whether it was Muslim or Kafir, whether it had been sent or had entered on its own, the conditions under which it entered, a moment of extreme fear, a place where protective prayers had been neglected, a threshold crossed without saying the name of Allah. And sometimes, under the full weight of the recitation, the voice does something that everyone in the room remembers for the rest of their lives. It begs. It asks to be allowed to leave without further recitation. It negotiates. It promises to go without returning if the practitioner simply stops. In some cases, practitioners have observed the jinn attempting to bargain, offering information, offering to reveal secrets, offering almost anything to make the recitation stop. The experienced practitioner never bargains. They continue until the jinn has left entirely, confirmed by the cessation of the voice, by the body of the afflicted person going suddenly and completely still, by a change in the atmosphere of the room that practitioners describe as a lifting, a clearing, like the way air feels after a storm has passed. And then the person on the mat opens their eyes. They do not remember anything, not the voice, not the convulsions, not the hours of struggle that the people around them witnessed. To them, it is simply the next moment after the last moment they were aware of. They come back disoriented, exhausted, often deeply emotional without knowing why. Family members who have waded through these sessions describe what happens in the moments after as among the most profound experiences of their lives. To watch someone they love return to themselves, to see the face of the person they know come back to a face that had been something else entirely, is something they say no description can adequately capture. The practice of ruqya continues today, in every Muslim country, in Muslim communities in the West, quietly, privately, in homes and in the offices of trained scholars. Thousands of sessions, thousands of cases, documented, recorded, witnessed. The jinn are not a ghost story. They are not something people used to believe in before science made the world safe and knowable. They are here. They are present. They are active in this world right now, today, as you listen to these words. And if you are someone who has never thought about protection, who has never considered what it might mean to move through a world that is more inhabited than you can see, then perhaps now is a good time to start. Because the frightening thing is not that possession exists. The frightening thing is how easy it is, according to every scholar and practitioner who has spent a lifetime studying this, how surprisingly, terrifyingly easy it is to become vulnerable to it, and how few people take any precautions at all.